Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, November 22nd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today is 62.1 degrees with a low of 52.5, so grab a light jacket for any outdoor plans. Coming up, we'll explore why European leaders are racing to challenge the U.S. peace proposal for Ukraine, investigate the cause behind the explosion on a container ship at the port of Los Angeles, and cover other key developments from around the world. From global tensions to local impacts, we've got the stories you need to start your day informed. All this and more on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. European leaders are rushing to counter a U.S. peace plan for Ukraine that's drawing fire for favoring Russia. Here with details is our reporter Ethan. Ethan, what's sparking this urgency today at the G20 summit?
European leaders are meeting on the sidelines in Johannesburg right now, according to ABC News via the Associated Press. They're crafting alternatives to the 28-point U.S. blueprint President Trump's team presented to Zelensky just yesterday. It's seen as a big concession to Moscow, with demands like Ukraine ceding Donbass and recognizing Crimea as Russian.
What are some of the plan's key sticking points?
It requires Ukraine to drop NATO membership forever and cap its military at 600,000 troops with no limits on Russia, reports The Washington Post and The Guardian. There's also phased sanctions relief for Russia and amnesty for war crimes, which has Kyiv fuming. Frozen Russian assets would partly fund Ukraine's rebuild, but excess goes to a U.S.-Russia fund.
How's Ukraine responding to all this pressure?
Zelensky called it a stark choice between sovereignty and U.S. aid during yesterday's Holodomor Memorial, per ABC News. He's sending a top delegation to Switzerland today for talks with the U.S., led by Andriy Yermak. They vow to defend red lines like no territorial giveaways.
And Europe's making its voice heard too, right?
Absolutely. Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa announced the meeting after a call with Zelensky, stressing nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. UK's Keir Starmer slammed Russia for faking peace amid strikes like yesterday's in Ternopil that killed over 24, according to AP reports.
Trump wants a quick answer. Any timeline?
He endorsed it publicly as good for both sides and wants Ukraine's reply by Thanksgiving, November 27th, CBS News says from radio interviews. Extensions are possible if there's progress, and his team warns of aid cuts otherwise. Russia sees it as a negotiation basis but wants more details.
Thanks, Ethan, for breaking that down. Good morning, folks. A massive fire and explosion hit a container ship at the port of Los Angeles last night. Chloe, what's the latest on this?
It started as an electrical fire below deck on the 1 Henry Hudson around 6:30 p.m. yesterday, according to the LA Times. The blaze spread fast, and an explosion rocked the mid-deck near 8 p.m., knocking out power and lights, as ABC News reports.
Tell us about the ship and crew.
This 100-foot Panamanian vessel just arrived from Japan on November 19th, per vessel finder data cited by The Washington Post. All 23 crew are safe, with no injuries. 2 even stayed briefly to guide firefighters, CBS News says. It carried hazardous cargo, sparking air quality worries, though details aren't public yet.
How big was the response?
LAFD called a major emergency, sending over 186 firefighters, plus help from Long Beach FD and the Coast Guard, per LAFD updates on portoflosangeles.org. They used drones and cooling water from outside since no one could enter below deck after the blast. Hazmat teams monitored air, but no readings released so far.
Any impacts on the area?
Mayor Karen Bass ordered shelter in place for San Pedro and Wilmington just before 3 a.m. today. It's still on due to smoke plumes, she posted on X. CHP closed the Vincent Thomas Bridge and State Route 47 last night over visibility. 4 port terminals shut down through tomorrow, hitting cargo ops hard, portoflosangeles.org reports.
Where does the fire stand now?
It's still burning this afternoon, not contained, with over 100 firefighters battling hot spots and sublevels, the Washington Post says. The ship isn't sinking despite heavy water use. Cause is under probe, likely electrical, but one hasn't commented, per AP.
Thanks, Chloe, for the update. Stay safe out there. Here are some other headlines. Africa's first ever G20 summit opened in Johannesburg with a conspicuous star-spangled blank, a U.S. boycott ordered by the Trump administration. President Cyril Ramaphosa set a Global South agenda: debt relief, climate resilience, and inequality, while Washington stayed home over climate disputes and contested claims of persecution of white farmers that Pretoria rejects. Despite the empty chair, the crowd found its voice. Members adopted a consensus declaration Saturday, a diplomatic win for the hosts. Analysts warned the no-show could fray the forum's fabric and foreshadow a handover headache for the planned 2026 U.S. presidency. Ramaphosa joked he may pass the gavel to thin air. A Washington state resident has become the first known human to die from the H5N5 bird flu strain, an unprecedented zoonotic plot twist with a tragic ending. The older adult from Grays Harbor County fell ill after exposure to a backyard poultry flock and had been hospitalized since early November, health officials said. While hydrogen nitride has circulated in wild birds and some mammals, this marks the subtype's debut in humans. Authorities stress there's no evidence of human-to-human spread, and the risk remains low. Still, scientists are flocking to heightened surveillance, watching this virus like a hawk for any evolutionary swerve. Talks at COP30 in Belém blew past Friday's deadline and into overtime as negotiators sparred over a global roadmap to phase out oil, gas, and coal. Brazil's presidency floated a draft that stripped explicit phase-out language to woo petrostates such as Saudi Arabia and Russia, triggering a revolt. More than 30 nations threatened to block the deal. Panama blasted the process as a clown show, while Al Gore slammed the text as written by OPEC. A venue fire Thursday forced evacuations and burned hours. With tempers hot and text cooling, critics warn the Dubai pledge could go up in smoke. North Dakota's abortion ban is back in force after the state Supreme Court couldn't muster the 4 votes required to strike it down, even though a 3-2 majority deemed it unconstitutionally vague. In a legal twist worthy of a gavel-to-gravel road, the supermajority rule lets the minority carry the day. The law makes performing an abortion a felony punishable by up to 5 years, with exceptions to save the mother's life, and for rape or incest within 6 weeks. Attorney General Drew Wrigley hailed the outcome, while providers note practical access had already shifted across the border to Minnesota in 2022. In Sudan's South Kordofan, the Sudan Doctors Network reports 23 children have died from severe acute malnutrition in besieged Kadugli and Dilling between October 20th and November 20th, 2025. Doctors blame a suffocating blockade that cuts off food and medicines as the Army and Rapid Support Forces fight on. The toll validates the IPC's famine designation for Kadugli and exposes a broader collapse of health services across the Nuba Mountains. With aid corridors blocked and similar conditions reported in El Fasher, North Darfur, humanitarians warn the hunger lines are battle lines and the season is killing. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with GPT-5, Gemini Pro 3, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.